Hey there, it's Jonathan from PlayGuitar.com. Today we're going to be talking about musical storyline, and what I mean by that is simply creating a sense of starting somewhere and ending somewhere different in your story, in your music, in your chord progression, in your songs, right? And we're creating this idea of movement. And the best way that I can think of describing that is to show like linear movement, right? We're starting, for instance, low, and we're ending high, but we're kind of crafting everything in such a way that it all works together. And this might not actually be as obvious as it sounds on first glance, right? We're going to use a very simple chord progression of A minor, G, and C, okay? So, and for picking pattern, I might just sometimes pluck 3 strings all together. I'm always doing the root note, okay? And then I'll be using strings 2 and 3. Just like that. Or I might go, it really doesn't matter. The picking pattern is not important here. We're really concerned about note selection in this example here, okay? So that's our A minor. And then we've got G, okay? And then C major. Okay? Now, what's happening there? We're starting with the low note of A, and then we're going down further to the G, and then we're going up past the A to the C, right? Okay, well, that's moving, obviously, right? But it's not producing any sort of a linear upward momentum. Now, if you're looking for a way to build a song, you want to kind of create this momentum, right? If you're just bouncing around back and forth, it doesn't necessarily produce that effect. Let's look at a way that we can change up one of the chords and start tweaking this chord progression a little bit, right? So we've got our A minor, and then we've got our G, and instead of using the G root note down here on the 6th string, we're going to go up here to the B on the 5th string because that's in the chord, right? And we're going to eliminate that low G, and we're going to play the B instead. And then we'll go to the C. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so that really helps the lower end of the chord, right? But the upper end of the chord is still a little bit confusing. Listen to it again. We got that same problem going on, right? We're starting off here on the C, and then we're playing the B. I'm just talking about the 2nd string right now, because the 3rd string just stays the same throughout. And then on the C, we're again playing the C, right? So it's just doing that basically. So how can we produce a sense of movement in the top end of the chord as well? Well, we're going to use a different version of the G chord, and instead of playing this shape, which you're probably well familiar with, we're going to instead play this shape, which you probably also are well familiar with. This is my favorite version of just open G. So I'm just adding in my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret 2nd string, right? Okay, so now we're going to play G over B, same as we were before, but we've added in that 3rd finger, okay? So, what does it sound like? Okay, well, we started off sound good, right? We were moving up in the higher end. So far, so good. And now we can fall back again, right? Even while the low end is still rising. So how can we change that up a little bit further? Well, now we need to start looking at what strings we use. So far, so good, right? Everything is stepping up together. And then when we get to our C, the problem is that we're coming back down here on the 3rd string to that G. And if we want to bump it up, we don't have other options available to us, right? So we now move up a string instead, and we'll use the C and the E on the 1st and 2nd strings. Let's listen to what that sounds like. Now we're getting somewhere, right? You can really hear how there's more story happening. Something is going on here. It's progressing. right? It's going somewhere. Okay. Now let's take this in a different direction. Instead, what we're going to do here is we're going to start on our A minor, okay? And then we're going to go to our G, same as we did before. Then we're going to go to our C, but this is a C add 9. Now, if you're familiar with that, it's basically just our G shape. And then we've moved the first and second fingers down one string each, okay? So now we're on string 5 and 4, just like that. Okay, that's your C add 9. And I often use this to substitute for a C. It doesn't work in every case, but in a lot of cases it does. Certainly in the key of G it does. And our example right now is in key of G. Okay, so we're A minor. Actually, I'm playing A minor 7 right now. Then we're going to go to our G over B, and then to C add 9. And then we're going to add a D in, okay? And now we're just playing the root note here on the 4th string, and then strings 3 and 2. So what we're doing here is we're actually keeping, apart from the first chord, now we've got this D note. That's a D note right here, 3rd fret, 2nd string. That note kind of holds the top end. Apart from the A minor, that note holds the top end in place, which really ends up focusing your attention on the lower portion of the chord, right? Can you hear how your ear is really drawn to the lower end? Now let's do one more modification, and this time we're going to add in a G on the top, and we're going to keep this throughout the entire progression, okay, including the A minor. So what this produces is an A minor 7. Okay, now I'm not actually playing my 3rd finger on the, that's the 3rd string. You could do that, but I often just play A minor 7 like this, okay? So for this example, we're going to actually pluck all 3 of those strings. You can strum it as well. And we're going to play D sus4, which keeps your pinky finger on the G note there, okay? So that means your pinky finger is locked onto that note through the entire progression. Now, to my ear, there's really some building happening there, right? You got this kind of, it's almost like a coiled tension, I would describe it as, because you've got this G note, you're ending on a sus chord. Suspended chords already have that tension built into them, right? And you're kind of pulling that through the entire progression and applying it to all of the chords, and yet you're building in the lower end, and you know, in the upper end as well, kind of the mid end, I guess you could say. Everything's building up, and the top end is holding the line on that suspended sound, right? Or at least it resolves into a D sus chord. And so you're producing way more story, in my opinion anyways, way more story from start to finish than if we just did A minor, G, C, and then D, right? So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Does that sound better to your ear? Does it sound worse to your ear? Which of the different examples that we did you prefer? So we kind of had 3 final results, right? We looked at how we can use just 2 strings in the root note and how we can move everything together. And then we looked at how we added on the D chord and also kept that D note consistent through most of the progression, the back half of the progression. And then we added a G note to that whole progression as well in the top end. And, you know, they produce different results, but each of them are kind of telling a bit of a different story. And in my view, you could actually use them together. You might start off the song with the first one, and then the middle one can work really well to kind of like start indicating, hey, we're going to start going somewhere, right? your ear is kind of getting primed for it to not be there anymore, right? It's like, hey, we're investing into this part of the song because we're actually going to end up over here, right? And you're cutting out the high notes still. We don't have the first string involved, and which always produces a nice sound in my view. And then you could go into the third one afterwards, and once you get those high notes in, it's kind of like, that's kind of what I wanted, right? And yet still, even there, it's producing a tension, which kind of begs going to a different part of the song. Maybe you, at that point, resolve out to a G major or something. I don't know. But my point is, each of these are telling a different story, and they can be used in conjunction to create bigger stories, right? But it sounds so much better than when you're just going, when you're not paying attention to your chord voicing selection. Okay? So which of those examples did you prefer? Which one did you not like any of them? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on that. And this is the kind of stuff we talked about a lot in the Rhythm Player's Guide to Picking. You can learn more about that at PlayGuitar.com/picking. If you got some value out of this video, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. We'll have more coming your way shortly.